Every year, on the second Monday of October, the United States observes Columbus Day, a holiday that has been celebrated since 1937 to honor Christopher Columbus for supposedly discovering America in 1492. However, this narrative is not just misleading, it's deeply hypocritical. It disregards the existence of indigenous peoples who had lived on these lands for thousands of years before Columbus arrived. In reality, the celebration of Columbus represents an act of deception that masks a history of colonization, violence, and genocide. To claim Columbus discovered America is to propagate a falsehood that erases the history and humanity of the millions of indigenous people who already lived on the continent. Columbus may have been the first European to reach the Caribbean and return to Europe with news of his findings, but he certainly did not discover these lands. The term discovery implies that the Americas were empty, waiting for Europeans to arrive, when in fact, indigenous peoples had well-established societies, cultures, and trade networks long before Columbus's arrival. This myth of discovery isn't just a misrepresentation of history, it's an intentional deception designed to legitimize colonization. By framing Columbus as a heroic figure, the dominant narrative seeks to obscure the brutal consequences of his arrival. His expeditions marked the beginning of centuries of violence, land theft, and the decimation of native populations through disease, forced labor, and warfare. The celebration of Columbus Day upholds this harmful lie, ignoring the suffering and destruction that came in his wake. The consequences of Columbus's expeditions were devastating. After landing in the Caribbean, Columbus encountered the Taino people, who initially welcomed him and his crew. However, this contact quickly turned exploitative. Columbus's arrival signaled the beginning of European colonization, characterized by the enslavement, torture, and mass murder of indigenous peoples. Under his rule, the Taino population was subjected to extreme violence, forced labor, and sexual exploitation, leading to a rapid decline in their numbers. Columbus's legacy is steeped in brutality. His governorship in the Caribbean was marked by inhumane treatment of native people, and he played a key role in establishing the transatlantic slave trade. The glorification of Columbus perpetuates a Eurocentric view of history that dismisses the atrocities committed in the name of exploration and conquest. This false narrative creates a sanitized version of history that celebrates the conqueror while erasing the voices of those who suffered under colonial rule. Columbus Day is not just about remembering a historical figure, it's about celebrating a system that has consistently used deception to justify exploitation. The concept of discovery serves as a convenient lie to rationalize the theft of land, the enslavement of people, and the extermination of entire cultures. The deception didn't end with Columbus, it continues to this day, as indigenous peoples around the world are still fighting for recognition, land rights, and justice. The holiday reinforces a dangerous pattern, glorifying colonizers while downplaying or erasing the suffering of those they oppressed. This selective storytelling contributes to a broader narrative of Western superiority that underpins centuries of exploitation, whether it's through the colonization of the Americas, Africa, Asia, or elsewhere. It's a narrative that continues to legitimize the erasure of indigenous peoples, their history, and their cultures. By celebrating Columbus, society is not only endorsing a lie but also perpetuating a cycle of deception that allows colonial violence to persist in different forms today. Columbus Day represents a glorification of conquest under the guise of discovery. The holiday deceives the public into celebrating a figure whose actions led to genocide, enslavement, and the destruction of indigenous cultures. This false narrative of discovery continues to obscure the violent realities of colonization, normalizing a history of exploitation that persists to this day. As long as Columbus Day is celebrated, we are reminded of how easily deception can be used to justify the worst of human actions. It is crucial to recognize and confront the ongoing legacy of colonization, rather than perpetuating its lies. Beware. What you allow to happen to the least of us will eventually happen to the rest of us. Come quickly, Lord Jesus. Perhaps today.